Computer. All right, welcome everyone. I am here with a very special guest. I would like to introduce Jesus Galindo. Jesus was a part of really the most successful men's basketball team in the history of MiraCosta College, 1996, and the team the year before as well, which I think we'll probably talk about both. And he's one of the legends that when I was playing and coaching with Coach Adelman, we would always hear about. And because of just kind of who Jesus was, and not just on the court, but just what he stood for and who he was as a person. So we're really lucky to have you here. And so I guess, Jesus, let's start by introducing yourself to the audience and maybe just a brief intro.
Yeah, well, I'm very honored to be here with Pat, who also played at MiraCosta College. My name is Jesus Galindo. I'm from the Castroville, California area by the Monterey, Monterey Salinas area. I played for Coach Adelman, and I went to MiraCosta College in 94, 95, 95, 96. Currently a high school counselor. I've been at my alma mater, North Monterey County High School, for 23 years. And I also work part-time as a college counselor at Hartnell College. So thank you for having me.
That is awesome. That's a long time. I think you and I have that in common. We've been at the same place for a long time. It's uncommon at this time in our age that people bounce around so much.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I grew up in this area and I came back, and I really enjoyed what I've done. I've done a lot of various jobs at the high school, like teaching, and I was an intervention counselor where I dealt with, discipline and kind of a student engagement counselor there. But now I'm doing all academic, A through G requirements, graduation requirements, scheduling, making sure the kids are meeting, certain requirements that they need. We also work on social emotional, especially with, the pandemic the last couple of years. A lot of our kids were, home, and now they're out in schools. And so that's been a lot better for us when it comes to them actually being in school. Even though we have to have our masks on, it's just better for everyone. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, let's start because I know, I talked to Coach, I don't know, about a month ago, and I said, hey, Coach, I want to start this series where we interview, alumni and tell their stories. And you were the first name he gave me. And so I think, tell us a little bit about before you got to MiraCosta. So, you don't like the whole, how you grew up, but what was it like where you were from? What's your family unit like? What kind of student were you in high school? What all of that leading up to MiraCosta?
Yeah, so I was my parents are farm working parents. My dad worked in the packing sheds for 35, 40 years. My mom worked in the fields here in the in the salad bowl, the Salinas, Monterey County, which is a as you probably know, multi-billion-dollar ag industry over here with strawberries, artichokes, broccoli, lettuce, you name it. And so they did that, and we grew up in a low-income housing apartments. There were 7 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I fell in love with basketball. And as a student, I was an okay student. I'd say I was about a 2.8, 3.0 student. But I think when I fell in love with basketball, I started realizing that, hey, this is something that I really like. So I really practiced a whole lot. And then I started getting better as a junior and as a senior. I was a pretty good high school basketball player in my area. I was probably one of the better players in my area. Not very big, but I was pretty quick and I can shoot it a little bit. But that was back then, not as much anymore. And so my parents taught me the value of hard work. I think that's what I learned, was the value of hard work. They'd come home after working 12, 13 hours, a day out in the sun, and they'd come home, filthy with their pants. My dad would come home, really, cold because he's in freezers, in and out of freezers, and then he'd get hot. And so they kind of taught me hey, I don't want you to work like we're working. And I think that was the best value and the best lesson that I learned from my parents is their hard work. And so I kind of applied that to school. I applied that to basketball. And then I went to Snow Valley basketball camp in Santa Barbara my senior year. And my high school coach took me. I couldn't afford it. He helped pay for half of it because my parents couldn't pay all of it. And that's where I met Coach Adelman. And I kind of fell in love with the way he taught. And my coach, Coach Mascari, knew him a little bit. And so that's where the partnership began. And, in talking to Coach Adelman and my high school coach, he says, yeah, he'd love for you to go play. play. And so as a little 18-year-old kid, I drove to MiraCosta College, and it became, and I can go in depth later on, but it became one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah. So that's a great transition. So when you get to Oceanside, get to MiraCosta, coming from Salinas, Monterey area, what's your first impression of it? And maybe also in those first few weeks or first months, do you remember, like, did you have challenges in your transition? Did you have challenges like as a freshman, maybe both in the classroom or in basketball or in just getting settled?
Yeah, there's no doubt there's a lot of challenges. I think the challenges as I was driving there was like, okay, where am I going to live? What's college like? Like, I got to take college classes. How many classes do I take? How many units do I take? Am I in the correct classes? But I do got to give Coach Adelman a ton of credit because, he made my parents and myself feel at ease. He helped me with the registration portion. He helped me with navigating those apartments that is it Bernard Drive? Is that still, I still remember those apartments right there. I lived there where I can literally walk to practice and to, to my classes and to practice. And so I think that was the difficult part. The challenges were like, hey, I have to wake myself up. I have to cook. I have to clean. I have to go to practice. No one's going to call my mom or my dad saying that I didn't attend practice. I didn't attend, classes. I'm not doing well in classes. So I kind of learned when I got there, hey, Coach Adelman runs a pretty tight ship, and I didn't want to let him down or my teammates down. So I thought, hey, I need to be in my classes every day. I need to work my butt off in practice. And I remember one of the challenges was when I walked into the gym for the first time, I looked at all these big players, stronger players, faster. They were bigger, stronger, faster than I was. But then I started thinking back to all the time that I had put in the gym and all the time that I had done, all these drills and playing against people who were quicker, faster, stronger than me. And I thought, now, you know what? I do belong here. Like I didn't drive 7 hours to the Oceanside, San Diego area to not make it and play on this basketball team. And so that was a challenge, and then just the other challenge was the fact that, some of our classes, I had a 7 a.m. class. And so there was days where we had a game in LA and we're not getting back till 11, 12. And it's, the alarm's going off at 5:30. And I'm thinking, I can hit snooze. And I'm like, man, if I hit snooze and not on a 10 class and Coach Adelman finds out about it, or my teammates find out about it, they're going to get on me. And so that was, just a kind of a challenge in itself, just trying to navigate being a college basketball player along with going to school, your homework, the kind of the chores of getting groceries and eating and having some downtime and studying. So there's just a big adjustment. When I was at home, that was a lot of it was done by my mom and my dad. There was meals there. They'd help me with my laundry. They would pick me up, drive me. I didn't really have to have a whole lot of money because they were cooking. So there was a lot of different challenges that came along with it. But I think one of the biggest thing that I learned was time management. I think that's one of the biggest things that helped me was just understanding my time. When I wasn't at practice, hey, then you might have to, start studying for this exam, or you got to read and you got to have that because the next day you have a game and you're going to be on a bus. And so those were some of the challenges that I had as I was, navigating myself through college and playing college basketball.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the hoops. You had 2 great years. If I'm not mistaken, I think you won 2 conference championships. Did you guys win it in 95?
Yes, we were.
Also,
we won back-to-back conference championships,
okay.
and I'm glad you brought that up because we couldn't end this without me saying we were back-to-back conference champions.
No, we're gonna get deep into we're gonna have there's a lot of things to brag about on this one. Well, so tell me, let's see, like let's hear some of your best memories of the basketball part. Were there big games, or were there funny moments in practice, or was there something that you just like the moment or the memories that you just kind of still touch your heart or maybe an individual, a friendship, or any of that?
Yeah, I can be here for an hour, and I'll try and keep it to a minimum, but there's so many great memories. I mean, I remember going to Palomar and beating Palomar, and I remember Coach Gilmore being on Coach Adelman's staff and him pulling me to the side and looking at me and saying, you better not lose to these guys. And I remember going over there, and Ryan Demergen, just, he was just, just Ryan was just the do everything. I mean, if you needed to take a charge, he'd take a charge. If we needed, a big assist, he'd have a big assist or a big rebound. And I remember at Palomar, I don't forget if it's a 94, 95 or 95, 96 season, I was out in the perimeter and there was no one really guarding me because we were like 6'7" and 6'6" with big John Williams and a couple of other guys. And so, they would collapse and they kicked the ball out to me. And I think in the first half, I must have hit like 5 or 6 threes, and Ryan just running down, just being pumped, saying, "You guys can't guard us. You can't guard us." And so that was a great memory. And I have so many memories going to the Valley, driving, 5 or 6 hours to, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name.
Antelope Valley.
Yeah, and going over there and winning, big games over there. It was just the experience of going through it with these guys. I remember going to Imperial Valley. We were, I think, 5-1 or 6-0, and they were 5-1, and we got to the gym. And we got there, about an hour and a half before. And I remember having to use the restroom, and I walk out and there's a long line of people wanting to get into the gym. And I was just like, wow. And I remember coming in, warming up. We'd go back inside and Coach Adelman giving us, our little pregame spiel, going over, certain players and just certain things like that. And then coming out and it just being a packed house. And, I remember Murray Sly, he went through a traumatic experience with his mom, and him coming back and hitting 2 huge free throws, and just the emotion in the locker room afterward, after a huge win. I mean, there's so many. I mean, practices with Coach Adelman. I mean, he was just a technician. I mean, he's so knowledgeable. I remember a couple of times just looking at him and saying, you know what? I want to coach like you. I want to walk like you. I want to do everything like you. And then a couple of times just watching him and me just kind of being in that zone, lost. And then he'd call my name and I'd be like, oh, wait, what's going on? And so there's just some fond memories. I mean, we had some home playoff games, which, the community came out and watched. I just remember a lot of, I can go on with Big John and Ryan and, Barnes as well. Kuwaku Maku, I can't forget Kuwaku there.
Here's the pick.
Oh man, look at that. Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, yeah, there's just some great guys there, man. It's just a great team. I mean, when I look at all these guys, it's just, Ashar right here as well. I mean, those guys are great guys, and we'll forever be linked. And that's what's awesome, is we'll all forever be linked as a team that was one of the best in Coach Adelman's career. And there was also some guys that didn't play as much on that team, but I'll tell you one thing, they were all engaged every day at practice. And so that was that was just one of the best memories I have. And then there's also some great memories of just traveling to games, getting together with each other after games, just eating together. There's just so many. It brings back just a lot of great memories.
Yeah. I wish I had film. I wish I had film to show you. Years ago, Coach brought in a bucket of, like, I don't even know. There's a giant tape, not even like a VHS.
Yeah.
And I don't even, we'll have to figure out how to sort those out, put them on DVD or online at some point.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be fun, man. That'd be fun. But yeah, I mean, just, and I think, and I can't forget, the people that work for Coach Adelman. I mean, it'd be a disservice for me not to mention, I forget all their names, and my apologies, but, we had a trainer, and then we had, our stats person, we had, people who washed our uniforms and, had us ready to play. I mean, they were there. I think it was Carol. I think it was.
Carol,
Yeah. And so they were all great. I mean, I think the biggest thing about MiraCosta College, along with Coach Adelman, is I felt like I was at home. And I think that's the ultimate compliment to an institution and to a person, was that when I was there, I felt like I was at home, right? And I think that when we went to practice, we battled, but I knew that when there was a game, those guys were all my brothers, man. They had my back in every which way possible. If I got beat, I knew they would be there to help. If I missed a block out, I know they would be there. If there's somebody that needed to take a charge, they take a charge. So there was all these elements of I trust my teammates, whether I was on the court or off the court. Hey, I need $5. Hey, can you help me with this? They were always there helping out, and so that's the great thing about my experience there.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of winning in 2 years for sure.
Yeah. And my high school team wasn't great. We were when I was a junior and a senior, we were just turning the program around. We were just starting to get really competitive and win, beat teams that we weren't supposed to beat. So I didn't play on championship high school teams like some of these guys did. So for me, just the thrill of winning back-to-back conference championships was just amazing. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after MiraCosta, where did you go? And did you keep playing, or was it just strictly school?
Yeah. So when I left MiraCosta College, I went to Sacramento State. So I went to Sac State. I came back towards my area in a sense. I mean, Sacramento's 3 hours, from where I live. I went to Sac State, and I remember going up to the coach and telling him, hey, I'm interested in trying to, be a walk-on here. And I came a few times, but I don't think, I don't know if I could have played in Division I. Sac State had just gone Division I. I think that I got every ounce out of my ability out. But when I got there and I was playing in open gyms and I was holding my own, but their point guard was 6'5", 210. I'm 5'9" and maybe $160. So you can imagine, I'm trying to go by him, and all he does is just kind of shift me out this way and then trying to guard those guys. And so I kind of realized one day after like the second or third time when I was trying to, somewhat maybe try to walk on, I thought, you know what, I think I've reached my max. And, I think for me is the biggest thing I have, Pat, is I have no regrets. I think I got everything I could out of my ability. I think that I became the best player that I can be. And sometimes, my best isn't the best for somebody else. And I remember going to a Sacramento State basketball game. This is a funny story. I had one of my college buddies who I met in Sacramento, Matt Bradley, and we went to a Sac State game, and I was sitting there, and they had 8 players suited up at one game. I don't know why. I don't know if people got sick or they didn't make it academically or what. And I was just looking at the bench with the 3 or 4 players, and I was like, wait, I could have been that other player right there. I just want to travel. Take me to South Dakota, North Dakota, Arizona. I just want to get out of my little California bubble. And so, but I remember thinking about that, like thinking, man, I'll go practice with you guys if you want. But yeah. And the interesting part is when I got to Sacramento, I was walking by there by the library, and I remember the name Drakeford from Saddleback Community College. They beat us by 1 point at MiraCosta College to get to the Final Four, which was in San Jose, which I'm 45 minutes, an hour away from. And I remember him looking at me and saying, hey, and I looked at him and I said, Drakeford from Saddleback. He goes, hey, Galindo from here. I go, yeah. We had played them 3 times and we had beaten them twice that year, and they beat us by 1 to get to the Final Four. But I mean, that's just what happened. Ball didn't go our way, but it was a great experience. So
yeah. Oh man. So, all right. So let's think. You're how old? 45? 47.
47.
So here's my question. If you could give your 18-year-old self some advice, it sounds like you had your head on pretty tight. Like it sounds like you did from how you acted today, told me today, and also everything I know about you from coach. It sounds like you really did respect the process. So maybe it's less to your 18-year-old self.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more to any 18-year-old going into college or to one of your kids. What advice do you give for them to, I guess, prepare mentally and emotionally, but also I like the word respect, like respect the opportunity. Like, how do you express that to them?
Yeah,
Or to
well,
yourself?
I think, the advice would be that, not everything's gonna go correctly. Like, not everything's gonna have, an A, I want to go from A to B. There's gonna be what I call forks in the road. There's gonna be some bumps in the road, some forks in the road, and you just have to not worry so much about the fact that these things aren't always going to go your way. There's going to be some times where things don't work out that way, and you got to brush them off, and you got to continue moving forward. I think, there were some times there where I kind of was stressed out about some things that weren't that big of a deal. But, as an 18-year-old, you don't really know that, sometimes. But yeah, I would say, hey, there's going to be some bumps, some forks in the road that you have to go around, you got to go through. And in the end, you're probably going to still end up there, but you just have to take a different route to get there.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I want to talk, let's talk about Coach a little bit. You've mentioned him a bunch, and as he deserves. I mean, Coach Allen is a Hall of Fame coach. He was at MiraCosta for 27 years, coach for 35 years. I agree with you. One of the most technically and strategically knowledgeable coaches I've ever been around. And I would duplicate what you said, that when I played for him and was lucky to coach with him, many times I thought to myself, I just want to do that. And it's much harder to do than you think, right? To actually embody it the way he does. But I would love to hear if you have a story, whether it be a funny story or a story about something that maybe touches your heart a little bit, or, because he was, I remember him for the 3 years. I was a redshirt 1 year, and I don't know if I ever saw him smile in 3 years. And then when I joined, and not because he's not a positive and great human being, but because he takes his role as a coach very seriously, and there's just no messing around in those moments. And then I realized as a coach that there are moments like that where he would get goofy, or he and I think the sarcasm is often how he would express his humor. But what stories, or what do you remember about Coach that others would maybe enjoy hearing?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of great memories of him, and I have a lot of stories. But I think, I'm gonna actually say that Coach Adelman is a great coach, but he's a better person, man. So I couldn't mention Coach Adelman without Miss Adelman and Benny and Sarah and Matt, because every Sunday, and people probably don't know this, but every Sunday, Murray and I, and even Ozan Korkut, my turkey boy Ozan, we would go to their house for dinner, and they would always cook dinner for us. They'd have burgers, they have her potato casserole, she'd make veggies, she'd do all these things. And so every Sunday around 4, 5, or 6, we'd all, get there, and, we'd have a great meal. And they just opened the doors to us, and they were like another family to me. They're like my mom and my dad away from being there. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people probably don't realize. I saw Coach Adelman buy kids food. I saw Coach Adelman buy, people groceries. I mean, there's a lot of things that he did that people don't even realize. And I think, there's a lot of great stories about Coach Adelman. I think, one of the good stories about him was that when we were at practice, like you said, I mean, everything was super organized. Everything was to the T, and you always knew exactly what to expect from him. He demanded hard work, he demanded for you to be prepared, and he demanded for you to be the best you can possibly be while you were there. And I think that's great right there in itself. And I think the other thing is just the role model. I mean, the guy carried himself, like a true role model. He practiced what he preached, right? He said these things, but he also followed through with them. And I think sometimes some of us will say things and we don't really mean it, or we don't follow through with it. And I think that's the one thing that I think he has. And the last thing is just the respect. I mean, everyone respected him. I'm talking about referees, players, coaches, everyone respected him. And I think, you just don't give someone respect. You have to earn that. And he's obviously earned that. And I was at his Hall of Fame ceremony, and that was just the amount of people that showed up for the dinner, and just the laughs, the stories of former players that I've heard of, like you have, that were there. We were in Stockton. I could have stopped time for like 10 hours there and just would have been there and just heard all these different stories. Would have been great, but I couldn't be with all the different people who are telling stories of Coach Adelman. But I wish I could have been in every little segment of those stories.
Yeah, well, maybe through this project, I'm gonna get them all. I'm gonna get them all, and we'll share them around, because
that's great.
He did such amazing stuff for so long. So great. Well, I really appreciate your time, and I always looked up to you a lot. As you were going out, I was coming in, and you had lived the life that I was aspiring to live. Like I said, you're one of Coach's legends, and he thinks the world of you for sure. We at MiraCosta we're super proud of the story, and so I'm glad to get to share this a little bit.
And I appreciate you doing this. I think this is great, and I can't wait to listen and view all the other people and their stories, and it's going to be great. And I think that you're doing a wonderful job, being back at MiraCosta College. So I appreciate you reaching out. We'll keep in touch, and of course, before I leave, go Spartans, baby.
Go Spartans. All right, here.